I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Sarah Voth. I'm a dietitian and I'm an eating disorder registered dietitian. And I'm so thrilled to be here talking today about one of, I would say, the most rich and sacred areas of healing our relationship with our bodies, and that is body image. And it is, as you will find, so much about the body and about so much more than the body too. So I'm excited to dig in and talk more about that. And so as we look at our agenda for today, some of the groundwork that we're going to cover is first some science about how does body image process in the brain. And don't go to sleep during that part because it's so interesting. Just how does body image process in the brain? How does our perceptions and our feelings relate to our body image? And a little bit of the research behind when folks have more positive relationships with their bodies, what are some of the things that they are doing that seem to promote a more positive body image? And finally, we're going to look at some of the intersecting constructs that make it kind of difficult for us to have a positive relationship with our bodies. And there is a lot more on that topic that we could cover today. We could talk for weeks about that. So we're going to dip into it, and then I'm going to give you lots of resources to keep learning about this. And then finally, my favorite part is now what do we do? What do we do if we're finding that our relationship with our body is negative, or we're assaulted by a body attack and it's just so overwhelming in that moment? What are some skills that we can use to get it right back on track, or to be curious and open to understanding what is going on and how can I heal this and move through it? So that's a little bit of our groundwork today. I feel like I could talk for days about this, and so please, be aware that this is just like a snippet of what we could talk about. And also, just like practicing any skill, I would say that initially, if you sat down to practice piano for the first time today, it might sound really messy. And how do I find my fingers to the right keys? It might feel a little overwhelming too, the information at first. So just like when we flex a muscle, we get better at it. I would encourage you to come back to these skills again and come back to information again. I know for myself, I've had to really come back to this many, many times to kind of get it. And also my perception of it changes as my journey with my body changes too. So it's kind of alive material in some ways too. So my urge for you is to practice it. And also, because we're going to be talking a lot about being in relationship with the body, this is a great time to actually practice that in this webinar too. You could see if it feels possible for you to turn off distractions and get cozy and get a mug of tea and your favorite pen and make some notes in your journal, and just make this space as distraction-free as you can, because I think it's going to help. And it's not always a comfortable thing to do. I like to be distracted and on my phone and doing this, and so finding some space and calmness, while it's not always our first impulse, will really help this kind of sink in. So that's my little encouragement before we jump in. So, when we're talking about body image, it's not uncommon, I would say, for us to feel a sense of, I don't even know what my body looks like sometimes, or it can feel like my perception of my body changes so dramatically, even in a given day, or even in a given 10 minutes, depending on what has happened in our lives. And this is something I hear almost universally from people that I talk to, is sort of a frustration almost, or a disconnect between what does my body look like, and maybe even earnest attempts to figure that out. What do I weigh, or what size do I wear? Or I might ask my spouse or partner or friend, what do I look like? Do I look good in this? Sort of an attempt to understand, what does my body look like, and is it okay? Are the people in my life how are people perceiving me? And that is actually my lead-in into talking about how is body image defined, because as you'll see in the definition of body image, it's not defined actually by a static point or a number or a size. In fact, body image is actually really much more slippery than that, because it's related to our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions of those thoughts and feelings, and our understanding of all of this. And as you know, thoughts and feelings are fluid. They're moving around all the time, and our perceptions change as we grow, as we learn, as we try new things. And so that also is interesting, because it leads us to talk about, how do we heal body image, or how do we improve body image? And the journey then is also not static, right? Because just like the path to positive body image isn't a body, it's not a weight, it's not a size, and it's not a static place, our journey to healing it also is not a place. It is an ongoing process of being in relationship with the body. And I think that maybe one of the things that is the most misunderstood about body image is we are told all around us that if we just, change this about our body, or we are in a smaller body, we lose weight, gain weight, what have you, we're going to feel better about ourselves. And time again, I think we are disappointed by that when it doesn't really work that way. And so hopefully, even in the definition of body image, we get a sense of, well, maybe that's why. It's because my body image, my image of myself, is far more complex than losing or gaining weight, or what size I wear. It's actually very much more nebulous than that. And so when we talk about body image healing, one of the core concepts that's going to come up again and again through this presentation is being in and with and in relationships to our bodies in a compassionate way. And so when I say being in your body, it's like, what does that mean, Sarah? I am in my body. Here it is. I'm in it right now. What does that mean exactly? It means that there is not only being in our bodies, there's a two-way connection, like a highway running up and down from brain to body, that we are accessing information upwards of how something feels, what I'm hungry for, what would feel comforting, what doesn't feel good, what my intuition is saying. We're receiving this information, and we're also responding to it most times with something that is going to meet our needs, or offer comfort, or help give us direction for what our body is telling us at any given time. And so being in a relationship is actually kind of like any other relationship in our lives that we're in, where there is a two-way communication. I'm with my friend, she's nodding and smiling at me, and there is a communication that's happening in that moment, and I'm receiving it, and it defines how we are together, and our body is just the same way, actually. And so some of the examples of body disconnection then that I see many, many times in practice can kind of be best exemplified by statements like, and maybe you've felt this before, I just don't know what I'm hungry for. I don't know what hunger feels like, or fullness. I just can't tell what my body is asking for. Or I just feel like my body craves, unhealthy foods all the time and is never satisfied. Or I just can't bear to look at my body. I don't wear clothing that shows it to other people. I don't look at mirrors, and I just really avoid my body. Or I might ask someone, and how does that feel? And they'll say, Sarah, I don't know how it feels. I can't tell. I don't know if it's good, bad, happy, and kind of feeling flooded by, I just don't know what my body is saying. And in some ways, this sort of, if you've ever felt that before, I would call that sort of a disconnection from what the body has to say. And the good news is, I think, just like flexing any muscle, we can improve that. We can start to draw on this reservoir of information that our body has for us at any given time. And so before we move into just what is that like, I think it's really interesting to talk about how does body image develop. And initially, when we're babies, maybe age 1 and 2, we're starting to realize about our body as an object. So kind of like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Like we have shoulders, they have shoulders. And we begin to realize like, oh, stomach, like my stomach. And then also brother's stomach, or grandma has a stomach. They have a stomach, I have a stomach. We all have this body part. And we might even begin to put some language to that, like my stomach is where I hold my food. And kids are endlessly fascinated by the digestive process, start to finish. And so talking more about the functionality of the stomach, but that's really where it stops, I would say, until about age maybe 5, where we're starting to get a sense of bigger, smaller, wider, lighter, darker, larger, rounder, flatter, but still maybe with not a sense of, what is that, good, bad, or the other, just an interest in it. So as I'm walking through the grocery store, my 5-year-old might point to a body and say, hey, Mom, look at that body. Just really enjoying the fact that there's lots of different kinds of bodies in the world, just like there's lots of different styles of dogs in the world or cats in the world. Like, wow, look at that Great Dane and look at that Chihuahua. Like, they're so different. And isn't that wonderful? That's sort of the wonder of like a 5-year-old and under. I would say all children still have that, but past about 5, 6, 7, kids are then able to also layer on meaning to this. And they begin to understand that there is a social meaning applied to different parts of our bodies and what that means. So, or for anything actually, for example, if you give a 5-year-old the choice between a dime and a nickel, and you say, which one do you want? The 5-year-old or 4-year-old might choose the nickel and say, it's bigger, it's cool, And a 7-year-old might say, I want the dime, because if I have enough of them, I could buy a lollipop and that would be great. And so a 7-year-old has begun to understand the broader constructs in this world, like this is worth more and what that means for me. And it's really not uncommon, tragically, that kids begin to really receive a strong narrative about better or worse when it comes to their bodies. So by age 6, 7, sometimes as young as 5, I will hear kids talking about, I have a bigger stomach than my friend. And that is now the cultural meaning: bad, worse, ugly, or somehow meaningful in some way, what that means about them. I feel like a worse person because of that. So now we've layered on moral and characteristics into just the body, right? And so this it begins very young, and we don't develop our body image in a vacuum. We develop it in the world around us, and certainly there is a lot in our world that really layers meaning onto the body and onto food, and what different kinds of bodies hold different kinds of privilege and safety in this world. And so on the next slide, you're going to see a comic that I find so, it just exemplifies photos sometimes. Photos come up a lot in my practice, where there is kind of a real love-hate relationships with photos, and a lot of clients will bring in photos or talk about photos. In fact, I can't say that I've ever heard a good story begin with this photo came up on Facebook Time Hop, and I just went down the rabbit hole when I saw it. And And so you'll see that there's this comic of Lisa Simpson. She's ready to go out and she's looking fabulous. And then she sees herself in a photo and is like, oh my goodness, how did someone let me leave the house looking like that? And this, I love it because I don't love it, but I wanted to show it because this probably has happened to all of us at some point. And going, why do I feel like I look okay in this mirror, and then I catch myself in a reflection over there? How did I leave the house dressed like this, you know? And I will have clients talk about this, endlessly talking about, I just don't know what I look like. I got ready in the mirror and I thought my shirt looked great and it was complimenting my, skin tone, and I felt like I was having a good hair day. And then I caught myself in a glimpse of my car door or a reflection on this mirror or window that I passed. And I just felt awful, like a ton of bricks fell on me in that moment. And I just don't know why that happens. And what's really interesting about body image is there are many different places in the brain that process what we look like at any one given time. And as you'll see on the slide with the picture of the brain, there are so many regions of the brain that light up in response to an image that we're seeing of ourselves, whether it's in 2D or 3D or a photo or a past photo or a photo that our friend took of us or a reflection in a car door or a mirror passing by. And so actually, when we are, let's just say, looking at a 3D image in the mirror, our brain might be lighting up in one area and saying, this is what you look like. This is your body in this moment. And then as we pass by a reflective surface, maybe even a different area of the brain is lighting up and saying, that's me in this reflection, and kind of trying to get a sense of me in that space and time. And so we could almost say we have many different body images, actually, because we are processing information in so many different ways about what our body looks like. Even sitting down and looking down at my body is my brain lighting up, trying to determine, this is my body here from this angle in space and time. And so lots of different information coming up, which is why things like emotions and fullness or hunger even can influence how I'm feeling in my body at any different time. Or sort of like bumping an object or feeling my body touching itself even is information. Like my arm resting on my body is lighting up another part of my brain saying, hey, you have arms, there it is, it's touching, and giving you this feedback to your brain. And all of this influences body image, but this isn't the whole story. We also bring to the table thoughts, feelings, and perceptions about what all of that information means. Just like when we were talking about age 7 being able to layer on cultural meaning, this is now meaningful in some way to me. And it's all of my life experiences maybe, or things that I've learned about what this means about my body, that it looks this way too, that we're adding to the table. And so just for an example, I'll share a story from a long time ago client who went to a party. It was like a dance, and it was dark, and there were people moving around, just kind of crowded because it was like a dance, maybe as a high school dance. And she caught a glimpse of this really beautiful girl across the room and thought to herself, if I just looked like that, if I just had her arms, or like, look at her dress. And then she realized this interesting thing. This gymnasium that she was in had pillars in the center of the gym that had mirrors on them. She was actually looking at herself. She was seeing her own body reflected in a mirror across the room. And when she realized it, her perception changed, and she was hit with, oh my gosh, how did I leave the house looking like that? I can't believe I wore that dress. I hate my arms in this dress. And it just flooded her. And hopefully you're getting a sense of how it isn't always just what we're seeing that's influencing what we're then perceiving about that. It's all of our life experiences or traumas or bullying or comments or perceptions of what it means to look this way that we bring to the table when we're looking at our bodies. When we talk about the research on body image and we look at the factors of what are the behaviors that individuals do that seem to worsen body image, and how is that correlated in the research versus what are the behaviors that individuals tend to do that seem to improve body image, and what is correlated there? What we come up with are actually two really distinct camps of behaviors that seem to either worsen or improve body image. And there's not a whole lot of overlap with them, which is really interesting to me. Additionally, what I find so sad actually is that a lot of times when we're healing from negative behaviors that really worsen body image, that's halfway. We can't only not do behaviors that worsen our relationship with body, because that only takes us halfway. I see this all the time in eating disorder recovery, which is what I specialize in. And what I find is that individuals will recover from their eating disorder, which is amazing, wonderful, hard work that they have worked so hard for. And they're no longer engaging in behaviors that really worsen their body image, like restricting their calories or weighing themselves or checking their bodies or lots of body comparisons. They've moved beyond this now, and yet they're feeling still so negative about their body in recovery. And while eating disorder recovery has brought them halfway, that's not the whole way, actually. There's actually now a set of behaviors that we can do to improve body image. And it's not the same as just flipping the negative behaviors into the positive. It's actually a whole separate set of behaviors that individuals with more positive body image tend to do that lend itself to a better relationship in their bodies. And so we're going to talk about what are those behaviors that are correlated with more of a positive body image. And I love this quote by Tracy Tilka, who is really one of the foremost researchers when it comes to positive body image. And she kind of goes through what I just said. She says, removing negative or maladaptive characteristics, but not teaching positive adaptive characteristics will likely create intermediate mental health characterized by a lack of pathology, so a lack of the eating disorder or the dieting, but a lack of vitality. So we're kind of getting so-so vitality. It's like not where it could be. And this is where I think the work really begins around body image, which I love working with. So before we dive into what are the positive body image characteristics, I want you to think for a moment, because we're talking about relationships, I want you to think about some of your closest relationships that you have in your life, whether it's with a best friend or a partner or one of your children. And I want you to think and pause the video if you need to, and write it down maybe in your journal. How did you build trust with that person? How did you establish the relationship that you have now? Was it done quickly or did it take a considerable amount of time? And what qualities helped you gain more closeness or more intimacy with that person? Did they show up for you consistently over time? Were they there for you when you needed it most, over and over? Did they stay with you after, a rough time in your life? Or if it's with a child, how do you build a trusting relationship with one of your children? It's a long process, right? It's showing up every morning with breakfast, and every time they need a Band-Aid, putting it on. It's repetitive showing up for somebody. And finally, what qualities do you look for in a good friend or partner? One of my values is fun. Really, truly, and it shows up in my relationships when I love when my friends are ready to have fun or do something or laugh about something. Humor is so vital to me. And so when we think about relationships, I want you to consider, have you ever considered that you are in a relationship with your body? That we are actually in a relationship. I've said it a few times through this video, but I want you to pause and actually think about, if I were in a relationship with my body, just like I'm in a friendship or a parenting relationship, how can we cross over some of these similarities? Because if we're in a relationship with our body, a lot of the similarities in relationships with people that we love and care for in our lives also we will benefit if they are here with our relationship with our body too. For instance, if our body is saying, I'm tired, and we can meet that need and get rest, or the body is giving us an intuition that something is off and I don't like this, and we can attend to it and make a change or do something proactive with that. Or the body is saying, I'm hungry. Just like a child might say, I'm hungry, is it lunchtime? And we attend to that. We say, of course you are. It's noon. Let's get lunch. Just in these ways that we show up with our friends or partners or family members. Have you ever considered what it would look like that you are in a relationship with your body, and how it would look with some of the qualities that you wrote down about a good friend? I want you to think about how that could maybe show up in a relationship with your body going forward. So next, you're going to see some characteristics of positive body image. And this is based on the research of looking at individuals who seem to have a very positive relationship with their bodies, no matter their size, weight, and shape. What are the characteristics and behaviors that individuals tend to do that seems to be correlated with a more positive body image? And I'm going to go down them a little bit quickly. So you have it in a handout in your journal, so you can go back to it and kind of think about it. So to start off, body appreciation. And what that means is that individuals who seem to have a more positive body image are able to hold both perceived imperfections and feeling disappointed about their bodies in some ways and I also appreciate this about my body. I love that I have this talent, or I am creative, or I am so good at giving gifts, or I love my curly hair that I got from my grandmother, or I have the greatest laugh, or my elbows can bend. Whatever works for you. Just this sense of like, look what my body can do for me. And this sense of being more than just a makeup of our perceived imperfections, that these wonderful qualities of us shine through that. So a sense of body appreciation, as well as acceptance and love. So being able to express comfort with one's body in lieu of our perceived quirks or injuries or frustrations with our body. And it sounds kind of just like the first one, but choosing to focus on loving our assets and what makes us who we are, in lieu of focusing on the things that we are not happy about. Inner positivity influencing an outer demeanor. So feeling that our positive qualities shine through us and make us who we are. And looking at the people in our lives and noticing also that their positive qualities are what we love most about them, not the size or shape of their bodies, but who they are. And beginning to not only extend and appreciate that about them, but to turn that on ourselves and notice all that we shine through with our bodies as well. The fourth one is having a broad conceptualization of beauty. Basically, having this understanding that we are certainly fed a very narrow definition of what beauty looks like, a very singular definition of beauty in our culture. And so a skill that one can develop is having a much broader concept of what is beauty, because beauty is not characterized by a shape or a hair color or a size or anything like that. In fact, it's cultivating this understanding of all types of beauty in the world, and that I also am embodied in that. I fit in that narrative as well. Along with that is media literacy. So being able to also identify where in the world, because there's a lot of places that we continue to see these narrow concepts of beauty reflected to us, and being able to challenge that and say, that's not realistic, or that's actually fake, that's been airbrushed, or that is so demeaning or objectifying, and it is meant to make me feel bad about my body, so I will buy this product or clothing item. And so developing a skill of being able to notice when in all the ways that does happen around us, and develop some resiliency to that and say, I'm going to limit my exposure to that, whether I'm limiting my exposure on social media or the types of films or TV shows that I watch or commercials alongside them or magazines that I read, realizing all the different ways that we are marketed a singular type of beauty. And it does add up, kind of like secondhand smoke. It's still dangerous, even if you're not regularly smoking it. If you're inhaling it a lot with these different forms of media, it does add up and it makes a difference. And so being curious when, after scrolling through my social media, I feel worse about myself, going, something's amiss here. I need to change something about my boundaries in my social media. Moving on, unconditional acceptance from others. And what that means is cultivating not only a social media, but a community in your own right of people whom you know love you for more than just what your body looks like, your spiritual community, your friendships, that you know your purpose is higher, bigger, greater than what your body looks like, and that you know that these people are loving or counting on you for things that are not really just related to what your body looks like. Finding others who are trying to do this as well. So finding others either with a positive body image themselves who shine that and are unapologetic, kids are like that, and or who are trying to do that, who are striving to do that as well. And finding these people to surround yourself with in this journey is going to be really important. And at the very end of the presentation, I have listed many, many different people that you can follow on social media or read or listen to on podcasts that will help you sort of feel less alone in this. Second to last is spirituality and religion. I think this can be a major piece for individuals, which is why I'm so excited to be talking on this platform with Collide, is because when I think we can lean into this idea that our body has a greater design, a grander design that was lovingly built, created, and designed just this way, quirks and all, and we can lean into that and feel the same kind of love for our bodies as we might feel for the bodies around us. Loving acceptance, not only for our peers or friends or spiritual community, but we can turn that on ourselves with the notion that we were designed and it is good, right? And finally, listening to and taking care of the body. So circling back to this idea that we are in relationship with ourselves, that when we have a need for rest or water or food, that we can lovingly, most of the time, attune to that and get fed or get rest or get connection if we're feeling lonely or a hug if we are sad or depressed about something. And so thinking of the body as how I can take care of you because you're giving me a sense of your needs, I'm going to try and listen to you most of the time with what it is that you're asking for. Or at least say, I hear you. I promise we will rest later. I hear what you're saying is, I think, just as powerful, even if you can't meet that need in the moment. So as we've gone through this list of 9 different behaviors and skills that we can cultivate, I'd like you to journal at some point, maybe at the end of this presentation. You can circle back to this question. Which principles do I feel like are already areas of strength for me? And how about which principles point to areas of potential growth for me? Where do I feel like, looking at these set of 9 principles, that I'd like to grow in this? What are the top 2 principles I'd like to focus on? I'd like to focus more on these 2 things. And then finally, what are the actions I can take to foster growth in these 2 areas? And I think that after we go through the skills, you're going to have a lot more idea for how to answer that actionable question. What could I do? So from very, very early on in life, we are taught to dislike our bodies. It comes from all around us. As I said, we do not develop body image in a vacuum. There's so much that influences our thoughts, perceptions, and feelings about our bodies. And unlearning this takes daily, consistent, effortful practice, just like learning any new skill in your life, whether it was learning a new language or piano. If you've ever tried to learn Spanish, for example, you know that just going to one class once a week for an hour, it'll take a long time. You know, what do they tell you with language learning? They tell you, immerse yourself. Find other people who speak Spanish and speak with them, even if you don't like how it sounds. Read books in Spanish. Watch Spanish movies. Do Finding Nemo in Spanish, and travel and meet other language speakers. And at first it feels like I'm getting a million things wrong, way more than I'm getting right. And that is how this can feel. And so please notice that it's not going to feel like it's working at first. It's daily, consistent, and effortful practice to unlearn these things. So when we talk about body image, at some point I think we're going to bump into words that I wanted to talk about here, and underlying foundational concepts that actually really hold up all of this work. And so I'm going to briefly go through some of them here, acknowledging that, again, these could be separate seminars that last a week. So I encourage you to learn more about them, and there's lots of podcasts, books, etc. linked at the end of this presentation where you can learn more. And the thing that is really cool about this work is I imagine no matter where you've come from, you've probably heard some degree of body positivity, because it is becoming a lot more widespread and a lot more mainstream, which is so wonderful. And it might have looked like a post on social media from a friend saying, I reject that I am defined by a number on the scale. I'm throwing my scale away. Or it's okay that I have roles. Or I appreciate all my body can do for me, and it doesn't matter what size I am. You might have seen now 1 or 2 types of these kinds of posts, and it's wonderful that that's happening more and more and more. And what I want to acknowledge is that the work that I get to do around body image is actually standing on the shoulders of giants and people who have come before and done so much incredible, and continue to do so much incredible research and social justice movement in these areas. And you're going to, at some point or another, probably come across concepts like health at every size, which I wanted to just briefly go through today. Health at every size is, it's a health paradigm but it's actually probably more than a health paradigm. It is a social justice movement. And it is a concept that you're going to find a lot of times in the fields of body image recovery, eating disorder recovery, non-diet. If you've ever come across like a non-diet approach to healthcare, there's a good chance you're going to come across this word, HAES, health at every size. And so I thought I would just define what is that today, and say, I hope you go learn more about it. So health at every size is more than just a concept of healthcare. It's actually a social justice paradigm that says, let's turn the focus from trying to change our weight and our bodies to trying to be in a better relationship with our bodies. And in doing that, we take the focus off of things like weight, BMI, and medical terminology around the body. And we focus it instead on how is this person doing? How is this whole person doing? And what ways can we help this person feel better, safer, more comfortable, or more healthy in their body? And it's a much more compassionate approach that also takes into account the culture around us that can make it really hard to do. And so it is a weight-inclusive paradigm because it says, there is no one body weight that is most healthy in terms of the general population. There's lots of different people with lots of different body sizes, and health looks differently for all kinds of people. So when we focus on a size, we often miss a lot of the more important pieces of health, like how is this person doing in their mental health, physical health? How are they doing with their body image or their nutrition or their mobility or their social or emotional health? There's lots more to talk about. And so I love this idea of shifting away from kind of an objective or numerical focus on, let's just say, weight, to a broader tree of things that are really important to talk about. And if it were a tree, you could think about some of the roots as being the cultural constructs that make trees grow different ways, like a person's lived experience, a person's trauma, or a person's feeling not enoughness in their body, or growing up in a larger body and feeling as though that is wrong, bad, or ugly, or a feeling that their body is wrong in some way because of their size, skin color, shape, or gender, or age. The list goes on, right? So in that way, it's more than just about health, because we're talking about how health is actually informed by all of these things and our lived experiences because of all of these pieces of the society that we grow up in. So if you haven't heard about HAES, I really hope that you will dig more into it by looking into some of the authors that I've linked at the end of this presentation. The last thing I'll say about health at every size and social justice is one of the things that I've continued to learn more about, especially over the last couple of years, is this concept of privilege, body privilege, and specifically unearned body privilege. And today I thought it would be important for me to talk about my privilege that I have just sitting here, and encourage you to think about your privilege. And the thing about privilege is we often don't know that we have it because we benefit from it rather than feel discriminated by it. For example, I have privilege in my life of being injury-free, and I can move about the world not worrying if there is a ramp or an elevator, because I feel able in my body to walk up stairs, and that is a privilege that I have. I also have a privilege of being in a thinner body, which is another unearned privilege actually that I occupy. as well as the color of my skin. I was born to Caucasian parents and also did not control that. And so this idea of unearned privilege can be a little bit uncomfortable, and it's okay if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable by this. I would encourage you to kind of sit with it for a second and notice it. In fact, as a dietitian, I feel like it's very important at some points to address my unearned privilege as a nutritionist or as a nutrition professional, because I show up in a thinner body, I'm often in this world given more privilege, maybe more attention paid to what I have to say about something, my advice about food or nutrition, because I look like our culture's perceived notion of someone who knows what they're talking about when it comes to food or body. And so the thing that I like to say on that is I was born to not only a set of Caucasian parents, but a set of Dutch Caucasian parents who, if you look at our family tree, you'll see a line almost like paper dolls of just Dutch farmers. And you can see, oh, that's where I come from. And there isn't a special thing or a secret that I have figured out with food or movement. I eat food that sounds good. I have the privilege and ability to move in a way that gives me joy. I even have the financial resources to be able to do some of those things. And so in talking about privilege, hopefully it opens up kind of a window for us to think about how this experience might feel differently for someone in a different sized body with maybe mobility issues or disabilities, different color skin tone, different color or different size of their bodies. And just understanding there is a depth of experiences that happen related to just how we show up in the world, and then offering ourselves compassion for that, for those experiences. So again, I'll say it one more time, the way that we view our bodies doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is related to how we show up in this world, and then what happens from those around us, how we feel treated, respected, heard, cared for, accepted from those around us as well. This all shapes how we perceive our bodies, right? So as we go into the toolkit, which is my favorite part, I'm going to tell you about some of my favorite skills, I would say, that I use all the time in practice with other individuals, talking about helping form a more positive body image. I'd like you to keep in mind some of these ideas that we've referenced, like privilege, body size, and all the different ways we show up in the world, to get a sense of how that happens. And I'll give you an example as we can see again this image of thoughts, perceptions, feelings, and behaviors. If I have a thought over and over and over, and let's just say the thought is, my thighs are so fat and disgusting. I hate the way my thighs look. That thought over and over and over and over begins to become a perception, almost like goggles that we wear or glasses that we wear. Go out of the house wearing these glasses. So I kind of drew a little goggles there, perceptions. We're wearing these goggles, and let's just say we go out of our house and we see our friend coming down the street to see us. My goggles, I'm thinking, oh gosh, I hope she doesn't look at my thighs. I'm feeling so fat today. Oh, I wish I didn't wear these pants. And I'm really focused on my thighs. And then what I might do is, in terms of like my behavior, I might look at my friend and look at what's she wearing? I might look and compare. So then I'm comparing, I'm kind of evaluating, I might kind of do the elevator eyes and get a sense, are my thighs bigger or smaller than my friends? And she might even feel me doing this, it's possible. And then I might even say something to her. I might say, man, I wish I had your legs. That's kind of a weird thing to say, but I love your jeans. I could never wear something like that. And then I might feel even a worse sense of shame because I've kind of hurt myself a little bit in that compliment. my friend is wearing her own set of goggles, and she actually might have also left the house thinking, I should, I don't know, this outfit, people are looking at me. I feel like people are looking at my outfit. I feel so off and just not enough. And I come along and I comment, and she might hear, people are looking at my body. I knew it. I knew people are looking, oh my gosh, I feel awful. And I might have said, oh, I could never wear those jeans. She might hear through her perception, I shouldn't be wearing these jeans either. And so in that way, we influence each other even in what we say about our bodies. And what is received is not always what we intended when it comes to body compliments. More times than not, I would actually say what we say isn't always received how we wish it were received. In fact, well, I could go on with many stories. I won't for the sake of time. But so this will be no surprise to you, but when it comes to building our skills around body image, we go right back to thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and behaviors as ways to interrupt bad body image thoughts. And so I'm going to go through some of my favorite ones in this last part. So when it comes to our thoughts, you can think of it like a megaphone sometimes that just starts getting loud, or a tape recorder or a gramophone that turned on, and suddenly, wow, that tape is playing. It's playing again, and it's playing all its favorite hits, and sometimes that gramophone will turn on when it has nothing to do with body image. I might have accidentally really made a mistake at work, and the gramophone turns on. You're fat, you're disgusting, you're ugly, you shouldn't have left the house today. It had nothing to do with my body, but boy, did that megaphone turn back on, right? And so one thing that I encourage people to do in that moment is notice the thoughts. They're going, the thoughts are playing. And to preemptively develop 5 compassionate statements that you would probably say to a friend or a loved one about their bodies, and see if you can turn that lens on yourself. Something maybe to the effect of, of course you're feeling self-conscious right now. That thing that just happened was really hard. You're okay. Or, you are more than your body. You are a friend, you're a daughter, you're a mother perhaps. You are this daughter, you're a daughter of God. Your body is good. And begin to develop your own list of what I'm going to say when that megaphone turns on again, and be ready for it, because it probably will happen again. I would also encourage developing curiosity. Why did these thoughts turn on? What else changed? That sort of leads me into the feelings. I feel bad about my body right now. And what else just happened? So developing curiosity about what has just now rocked the boat. If all of a sudden that megaphone turned on with a ton of body critical thoughts, developing sort of a pause, look around. What just happened in my life? What was I taking in? What was I listening to? What just happened in my day-to-day life that might have impacted feeling just so suddenly self-conscious or ashamed or out of control or weak? And sometimes, not all the times, but often when we pause and we just look around, or we pause the movie reel and we look back 24 hours or 12 hours, again, looking at what has been going on for me, sometimes we can figure it out. Oh my goodness, yes, that I have been feeling under a deadline. I made a mistake at work and I feel embarrassed about it. I feel like my friends don't want to hang out with me. My mom called and it was upsetting our conversation. Sometimes we can go back and think, yeah, that was a lot of when that megaphone started playing about my body, and getting curious. The thing about body image that I find very fascinating is that our feelings, our bad body image thoughts can sometimes be a entry point actually into a deeper conversation about how we're doing. That on the surface of the iceberg, it feels like I just hate my thighs. And when we begin to dive into what else is going on for me right now, a lot more tends to come up with it in terms of our lived experiences or past experiences or trauma. In fact, some clinicians I work with who are tremendous around body image, they say a lot of times when body image gets really activated, it's old trauma that is getting activated too. So, in terms of perceptions, I think it's really helpful to begin to develop an awareness for what tends to be the types of scenarios or events or behaviors that make my body image tend to get worse. If it is certain social media platforms that I usually end up feeling a little bit worse after I'm done, or friendships that when there's a lot of food or body talk, I tend to leave feeling worse about myself, or just particular scenarios that we'll notice a time of the month, where it's like, yep, usually by about week 3, it hits, and then developing a sense of resiliency to, I know it will probably get better. Hold on through that time. And I've gotten through this before and I can get through this now, developing a sense of this will be over. This feeling is not going to last forever. In terms of behaviors, finally, keeping our head in the stream of body positivity. Now, just like we talked about with learning a new language, body positivity for some of us, this is a language we've never learned before, never. And so we're developing all kinds of new vocabulary today, all kinds of new thoughts today, and structures and paradigms today that we have never been exposed to before. Keep learning it, keep coming back to it, and keep trying. Just like immersing yourself in a new language, this is something I encourage you to come back to and immerse yourself in as well. Books, podcasts, listening to books on tape, or authors or social media or people who are in the same journey, it will only serve to help you with this. And therapeutic support for having the deeper, under the iceberg conversations about what is getting activated, I think is tremendously helpful if you can. I'm going to go specifically through 1 or 2 more of these skills before I end. And one of them that I'll go through is if then. This is a really simplistic skill, just like how it's self-explanatory, if then. If I insert what my critical voice is telling me, if I could just lose 10 pounds, then I would feel maybe less ashamed of my body. And if I felt less ashamed of my body, then maybe I would not hide myself away or isolate. Then maybe I would decide to hang out with my friends more often, or go on a date perhaps, or go to the beach in a bathing suit, or travel, or be kind to myself. And if I took more risks socially, well, then I think maybe my life might be more fulfilling. And so we're finding sort of a trail of, if I just lost 10 pounds, I feel like my life would be more fulfilling. It's getting at the deeper piece of what we're really talking about. We're talking about the body, but we're not really talking about the body at all. And I'm feeling, here's that entry point into the deeper conversation, I'm feeling unfulfilled and stuck in my life right now. And that gramophone just turned on. I'm feeling really stuck. I'm actually feeling a bit lonely. I wish I could be with my friends. The thing that I find really helpful to know about emotions, and the reason I chose the cloud and sun icons for this, is because emotions are like clouds moving across the sky. Sometimes it's sunny and then a cloud passes over and it gets really chilly and dark. But it's not going to be that way forever. It's going to pass and it's going to get warm again. It just feels really hard in that moment, and it will also end. So developing a sense of, right now I'm feeling lonely or stuck or ashamed. The thing that I've learned about emotions is that we can't control them. We can't control our thoughts. They're going to come up again and again and again. Even if we know they're unhelpful and untrue, our brain is just a fountain of them. And our emotions, we can't really change either. They come up. And in fact, it's a good idea to let them come up and to be with them. And like as we were having a friend over for tea, sit down with them and really let them in the room. We can't control them, though. What we can control here, though, is how we respond. And I've touched on this word so many times, and I'll say it again, compassion. It is an action here that we can choose to respond with compassion. I'm feeling lonely and stuck. And compassion, we can come to ourselves and say, this is a really hard thing to experience. You are not alone in experiencing this, and this is really painful. What can I offer myself in this moment that would be helpful? And maybe even ask your body, what does my body have to say about what would sound nice? A glass of water, a walk outside, calling a friend, taking a nap. Finally, coming back to this idea of our bodies being a two-way street, this last skill I think is so, so helpful. If my body had a voice, what is my body saying in this moment? If my body had a voice, would it be saying, you're kind of tired, you're ready for a nap, or you're kind of thirsty, it's been a while since you've had some water, or you're really hungry, even if it is 10:30 and you just had breakfast, you're hungry again. Let's go ahead and have something to eat. And responding again. Not only do you have permission to respond to your body's needs, it is a wonderful, kind, and compassionate thing that you can do in building positive body image. And just like we wouldn't wait with a friendship to treat them better once we were good friends with them, like I'll treat my friend nicely once we're close. We're not going to wait. It's just as silly to wait until we like our body to start treating it nicely. We start treating it nicely first because that's how we build such a deep, wonderful relationship with it. And we notice with compassion all the ways that it is hard to do that. And that's part of the journey. So linked lastly in terms of things that you can do is keeping yourself in the stream of body positivity. And I've listed some of the most incredible books, podcasts, and even people that you can follow on social media that are just continually having this conversation about body image and what it means to grow in our relationships with our bodies. So I would encourage you to check them out. Just like learning a language is so complex and there's so many different ways that we learn. We learn by being in a relationship with people, by reading, by watching movies, by speaking this language. I would encourage you to look at all of the resources at the end of this toolkit and see what seems like my first, I'm jumping at the thought of maybe looking into this and maybe see what seems most exciting or interesting, or what questions are you wrestling with now at the end of this presentation, and what would you like to learn more about, and let that guide maybe your next steps with this. And please, I'm more than excited to hear from you what questions, thoughts, or feedback that you have for me as well. So please do reach out and reach out to the people at Collide who are excited to set you up with next steps as well. So thank you for having me. I'm so overjoyed to be here talking about body image and what a sacred and incredible journey it is. And thank you very much.